Safe space. I'm sure we all have our safe spaces. Somewhere to escape the hustle and bustle of the outside world. A sanctuary of your own, where everything is perfectly familiar. Some have a garden. They know each stone in the gravel path they tread on, each leaf and petal in the grove, each span of ivy growing on the surrounding walls and fences. The sounds of insects buzzing and songbirds chirping, the sound of a deep breath filling their lungs with crisp air, and the familiar creak of the wooden bench as they sit down, all tell them that they're home. Some others have their workshop. Whatever they're making, they know the scrape of the stool against the floor, the whir of their tools being put to use, the creak of mechanical joints and hinges, the half-finished projects lining their workbenches, the finished projects lining their shelves, and the pile of tools just at arm's reach all tell them that they're home. Most others have their room. The familiar whine of the door hinges as they close the door behind them, the creak of their mattress as they fall upon it after a long day, the whir of the computer fans on their desk. They know the satisfying click of each key on their keyboard, the padding of their headphones over their ears, the perfectly molded grip of their mouse, their collection of books and collectibles on the nearby shelf, the too full laundry bin, and their pet sleeping soundly on top of their pillows, all tell them that they're home. Like many others, my safe space was my room. Each day I'd find comfort walking back in, the click of my light switch, the heft of my weighted blanket, the firmness of my pillows. I knew it all by heart, which is why I was so alarmed when it was all wrong. I am writing this to help you. You'll know it when everything goes wrong. It's impossible to miss for people like you and I, for those of us who know our world inside and out. And just as you know it, it knows you. It knows you better than you know yourself, but you have a fighting chance. You can take advantage of it. Rule 1. Your space is your world. I do not mean this metaphorically. At the point when you know more about your space than yourself, it splits from reality. It will remain tethered to the rest of the world while you are not in it, and while other people are in it. But once you, and you alone, are within the space, it begins to float out, on and to nothing, to unreality. The only way for multiple people to journey out together is for them to all know this space better than themselves. If you know the right method, you can see outside, to the eternity of silence, to the inky black sea that holds no water, yet still holds you afloat, to the space where nothing has ever been or will be again. As soon as the space is disturbed, it will rush back to reality instantly. Someone may knock on your door, take a step onto your garden path, call out to you from the reality shore, and you'll be back. You will feel nothing. The space will not move yet. It will arrive at its destination. I always had a small ritual for when I entered my room. I stood outside the closed door with my eyes shut for a few seconds before I opened the door and stepped in, never looking behind me as I closed the door behind me. It was just something I did, something I never thought twice about. It was during this small routine that I noticed the first thing out of place. It was after I stepped inside, looking towards my bed. As I closed the door behind me, I waited for that familiar click of the lock sliding into place. If you've ever misjudged your step on the stairs, not realizing that there's an extra step, and feeling that moment of panic as your foot falls much further than you intended, you'll know what I felt. The door had to travel ever so slightly longer to reach the frame, to where it almost felt like it should have gone past the door frame before the thud of the door closing reached my ears. It caught me off guard, but I figured I had just taken too long of a step when I walked in. I confirmed the door was locked and sat down at my desk. Ekai had just messaged me. Rule 2. They come out to play when you're alone. There are things that live out in the void of unreality, which your world floats in at the whim of non-existent tides. They can't enter our pockets of reality, at least not yet, but they can still influence it. They are shapeshifters with no set form, but they seem to prefer forms that are aquatic in nature. The creatures you encounter are mostly non-hostile unless provoked, and their only real danger comes from their playful antics. To them, it's exactly that, play. But that play is dangerous to creatures of reality, and they don't really know how to hold back. Their playtime takes the form of dangerous obstacles and conditions you have to meet. It is a simple game to them, and it's merely their new reality friend's turn to run the gauntlet. The creatures of unreality are highly intelligent. With enough time, you can even befriend them. Take that time to do so. They like the term unreality friends, or just friends for short. We are their reality friends, so I suppose the moniker makes sense. They are your anchor to unreality, the only ones who can hold you steady as you drift further out. The thought of drifting in the void may be unnerving, but it is preferable to sailing past unreality and into no thing. They are living, thinking, unbreathing beings. They have thoughts, names, desires. They have likes and dislikes. They have their own friends and enemies. They are them. They already know you, so take the time to get to know them. Ikai is a good friend. I'll get back to their aforementioned playful antics soon, but I think it's more important to tell you why you need that anchor. Rule 3. If you drift out too far, you can't come back. This is why you need them as your anchor. The seas of unreality surround the islands of reality, but unreality has a limit. When you sail too far into forever, sail past forever, you end up in no thing. The non-existent seas of no thing go on to infinity, with no favorable tides to send you back to unreality. You'll drift on and in nothing, for as far as nothing goes. I've heard that there's supposedly an end to its true infinity, but to reach it is to reach a white hole. You can only get ever closer yet never reach it. You are Tantalus reaching skywards for his fruit, Sisyphus rolling the boulder, Atlas holding the sky. There is no end, neither for you nor no thing. Reality can somehow survive in no thing, but unreality cannot. If you sail past, nothing can help you. At some point, you're bound to reach the border. If you stay in your space long enough without interruption, you'll ride the tides and reach the end of everything. You may be bedridden from illness, resting in the comfort of your room. You may spend just too long gazing at the stars past the canopy of vines. You may become consumed by your work, the whirring of tools and the creaking of metal joints taking you past the time limit. Whatever it is, I hope you've made some friends out here before that happens. They'll hold you steady, away from the black hole of void. Do not accept no thing's invitation. I saw the border once, where unreality and no thing mixed. I saw one of my unreality friends swim through nothing into no thing. He flickered as he neared the border, and as he crossed it, he vanished into nothing. Ikai was a good friend. On average, you have about a week before you end up drifting to the border for the first time. I sincerely hope you've befriended them by then. Rule 4. Play along with their games. This is a requirement for befriending the unreality friends. Their games are games, but they're also a sort of rite of passage. They'll start to trust you more when you beat their games. Ikai has some of the easier games. You'll have to deal with their games the most before you befriend them. Once you get to know them, They'll be considerate and only ask for a game every now and then. They'll also usually refrain from asking if you're clearly having a bad day after that. 4A. You'll know when the games start. Trust me when I say that you'll know when the games have started. It'll be small at first, but for anyone whose space has gone so far as to drift off into unreality, the small differences will stand out to you immediately. In all likelihood, Ikai caused it. He likes to begin the games. You may feel the door travel a bit too far or not far enough before it hits the frame. The flowers in the garden may be ever so slightly too dull or too vibrant. The stool at the workbench may sit just a little too high or too low. Whatever it is, you may be tempted to just dismiss it as a trick of the mind. It is not. Trust your gut. The more oddities you find in your space, the more friends there are. At first, you may have to deal with as many as 7 at a time, but after you've befriended them, you'll only have to deal with 4 or 5 at a time at most. 4B. The rules of the games. The friends are rather fond of mind games, and as such, do not make their rules immediately apparent. However, they don't leave you entirely in the dark. Each phenomenon your space is currently experiencing has a rule corresponding to it, and a specific friend responsible. A word of warning. The rules come into effect as soon as the game begins, even if you haven't found all of the signs yet. When the game starts, you cannot leave the space. Time will halt at the shores of reality. Nothing is coming to drag you back to reality. You must play the game to completion. The game will only end when you've survived a full hour, or when you beat condition 11. I pray you only need to make it an hour. If the arrangement of things in your space has changed, Mika is responsible. You'll find that as you're playing the game, a total of 4 chimes will sound at various times from different rearranged objects. When this happens, you have 15 seconds to take the object and move it somewhere where it has never been before. This includes places you put it in previous games. If condition 11 is in effect, you instead only have to find the object to begin with. If one or more objects in your space have slightly changed color, Emma changed it. Periodically throughout the game, you will see the affected object out of the corner of your eye, even if it's impossible for it to be in your peripheral vision. When this happens, you will have 10 seconds to make your way to the object in question and touch it. It's very easy to do so once you notice it, but it can be surprisingly difficult to notice when you're busy with the other conditions. If a door or window takes longer to open or close than usual, Ikai is responsible. You need to keep the affected doors and windows locked. Failure to do so will eventually lead to the door or window slamming open and you failing the condition. If condition 11 is active, you don't fail upon the door or window opening, but you need to hide from what crawls out. If a door or window takes less time to open or close than usual, that's Ezraiana. You cannot lock the affected doors or windows or prevent them from opening in any way. On occasion, the door or window will slowly begin to creak open. You will have to close it before it fully opens and hold it shut for 3 seconds. This is the only time you may do so. If condition 11 is active, you instead have 10 seconds to close the door or window after it fully opens. If one or more objects in your space appear older and more worn than before, Erin was responsible. You must be in physical contact with the object for at least 3/4 of the game. The object will always be small enough that you can carry it with you, but too large to fit in most pockets. If the shadows of you or objects in the space are pointing towards the light instead of away from it, Lily is responsible. You'll have to keep an eye on the light the shadows are pointing to. With only one exception, the light is never to turn off. If the light flickers, turn off the light. You don't know when it will flicker, but it will flicker. You have 10 seconds to turn it off when it flickers. Condition 6 never appears alongside Condition 7. If the shadows of you or objects in the space are absent entirely, Lily is once again the culprit. At some point during the game, your shadow will come back, but it won't be attached to you. Shadows heavily dislike not being attached to their counterpart. It'll want to make its way back to you. Don't let it. Condition 7 never appears alongside Condition 6. If an object has gone missing from the space, Here has decided to play with it. It will be returned to its rightful place at the end of the game. For the game's duration, you cannot place anything, yourself included, on the space it went missing from. This is the only condition that cannot appear if Condition 11 is active. If a new object has appeared in the space, Oren wants to play a board game with you. It can be a game of chess, go, shogi, backgammon, whatever you're best at. If you don't have the game in your space, the new object will be that game. You'll have to sit down and play the game to completion. Any rule that would require you to stop playing the game entirely are not in effect during the game, but any other rules like rule, hashar, still apply. Do your best to win. If you manage to win, this rule will no longer be in effect and the object will disappear. If you lose, Oren adds another phenomenon with its corresponding rule. If someone you do not know is in your space, Nuya put it there. The person will be a medium-sized, disheveled humanoid tied and gagged in place in a corner of the room. No matter what it does, do not acknowledge it. Do not let it know that you know it's there. And no matter what, do not make eye contact. If your space is suddenly much, much larger, I wish you luck. Your space has turned into a sort of maze or labyrinth, and these are all of the rules and phenomena the unreality friends found fit to let me write down for you. Rule 5. There's ways to look outside. If you wish, you can gaze out into unreality, to where things and nothings pop in and out of non-existence. It's a beautiful thing to gaze out upon uncreation, and there will be times when you have to look outside for your safety. Just be careful not to fall out. There's a few ways you can look outside, but it's much easier if you have a window of some sort. Open the window, or any opening that leads outside your space if you lack a window, and hold your hand out with your eyes closed. It will take a few minutes, but you can open your eyes when you feel your unreality friend hold your hand. From then on, you can look into unreality by looking outside and blinking twice. I stood up from my computer to go to bed when the urge pulled at my mind to look out. I found it unusual that there was no sound from outside. The sounds of people walking and talking on the sidewalk, the cars driving home on the nearby highway, the occasional sound of rain pitter-pattering on the asphalt outside. Sounds came and went, but there was always something. I listened, only to be met by an unnatural silence outside. I opened my window. The roads were empty. The street lamps shone for no one. But most strange was that no light shone through the windows. I checked my phone. An alert for a blackout had been sent out. I thought it was odd that I still had Wi-Fi, but I suppose my house was connected to a different set of lines. I looked out further and saw a piece of paper lying in the middle of the road. I would have taken a closer look, but the eerie silence of the roads was captivating. I didn't want to turn back for even a moment. I closed my eyes and let the quiet of the outside take me. My eyes only shot open when I felt a hand grabbing onto my own, and I was met with the greatest sight I've ever seen. Rule 6. The friends are not the only inhabitants of unreality. The forever ocean of unreality can be likened to that of any reality ocean you're familiar with. The shores of reality are shallow, at least by the standards of 7 dimensions, and the creatures that inhabit them relatively safe. The friends occupy the more shallow regions of the nothing water, but will travel alongside the reality ships as they sail to and from both nothing and everything. Other things exist in the deeper portions, dangerous things. If you act incorrectly or make a misjudgment when dealing with them, you will in all likelihood perish. Follow the rules. The forever ocean contains 3 zones of depth. However, is not quite deep in the way you would think about it in 3 dimensions. To simply sail out past the shore on the non-existent surface brings you further into the depths. Don't worry too much. Ikai is a good sailor. 6a. The shallows. The shallows are, well, the shallows of the forever ocean. You're sure to become familiar with it, as it's where all of your journeys start and end, and where the friends reside. The following life forms live in the shallow zone. You already know the unreality friends. You know Nuya, Ikai, Oran, Lilili, Ezriana, and others. You don't need more information here. Soul drops are the remnants of certain beings that wander around the shallows. They take the form of a small orb of particulates that float around the non-existent waters. Entirely harmless, although be careful not to harm them if they enter your space. The friends tend to be rather fond of them. 6b. The drop. This is the drop-off point for the forever ocean's depth. Past here, conditions change rapidly, as do the inhabitants. The friends can follow you here only because of their inherent shape-shifting, a trait unique among life forms in unreality. This means that save for the friends, creatures of unreality cannot leave their own zones. The following life forms live in the drop. Light things are the most prominent life form in the drop, being relatively small fish-like creatures able to survive in reality for short periods of time. They'll occasionally swim into your space. If this happens, you need to grab at least one of them. They're timid creatures, and if you scare them off, it'll keep their presence from attracting a hunter. The hunters chase the light things. The ringmouths are powerful predators, capable of eating reality and detecting any active organisms in the drop. When in the drop, one of the friends may notify you of a ringmouth's presence. When this happens, you need to go to sleep to avoid attracting it. The friends will hide their presence as well. Don't worry if you break a condition because you slept. The friends will understand. 6c. The abyss. There are no life forms that can naturally survive in the abyss. It is the point where nothing mixes with no thing, and where only the reality ships and the friends can survive. Past the abyss is no thing. The following life forms live in the abyss. No life forms live in the abyss. You can relax here. Rule 7. The friends can save your life. I'm sure I've already convinced you why you need to befriend them, but their protection can extend past the forever seas and into your very mind. They can keep you safe from more than just external threats. The first I befriended was Ikai. He preferred an almost cat-like form that was nevertheless unmistakably aquatic. A great friend, he made sure I was keeping myself physically active and healthy. He was the first to lead my reality ship past the shallow shores of the forever ocean, and the one who stopped me from drifting out into no thing. I owe him my life. Next was Oran. His form always seemed to borrow elements from various cephalopods, the tentacles adorning his arms, legs, and head, always tied back in a sort of ponytail. Out of all the unreality friends I know, he is the most fascinated by games of the mind. He keeps my wit sharp, and I've only bested him in chess twice. Then was Ezraiana. They favoured a form inspired by the manta ray, with a tall and lean frame, covered by the patterned wing fins. However, one thing that never disappeared from their varied forms was a kind smile. They helped keep my mental health well. It had been about a week since I had made my new unreality friends, from Ikai to Ezraiana, to a half dozen more. I was coming back from a brutal shift at work, and had just broken up with my girlfriend of 6 months. It had all just worsened the bout of depression I had been going through. My eyes red at the edges and my cheeks flushed. I stood at the door to my room. I closed my tired eyes, waited just a few seconds longer than normal, and opened the door. I barely bothered to open my eyes as I stepped in and closed the door behind me. The ever-familiar click of the lock finally telling me I didn't need to hold it all in anymore. I was welcome here, alone here, safe here. I fell onto my bed, sniffling as I curled up under my blankets. A small thud at the side of my bed soon startled me. I turned over to see if a book had fallen from my bedside table. Sheer panic washed over me as I opened my eyes to a long path of grey walls and carpet. The games had started, and Condition 11 was in effect. I sat at the edge of my bed, held my face in my hands, my breathing becoming laboured and heavy. I neared the edge of a panic attack. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'll die if I fail the game. I didn't have what it took to win this game right now. I began to consider breaking the first condition I came across, to just escape it all. I saw the thin form of Ezraiana appear from behind a corner and walk towards me. I just sat, having resigned myself to my fate, and Ezraiana sat down next to me. They explained that everyone had agreed to begin the games with Condition 11, but that no other conditions were to be active. While Condition 11 was in effect, time was effectively frozen outside the reality ship until I made my way to the end of the labyrinth. Using Condition 11 was the only way they could enter the space, the only way to sit down next to me. We could still talk without Condition 11 being active, but using it was the only way to speak face to face. I spent more than a week inside my room, yet not even a second had passed in reality. Ezraiana stayed with me all that time, as a shoulder to cry on, a body to hug, a friend to talk to, when I felt I was ready to walk out my door and into reality. Ezraiana held my hand and guided me through the harmless maze. Reaching the end, I looked at the simple door leading back to the shoreline. I gave Ezraiana a hug, thanked them, and ended the game. They would do it on occasion for me when I needed it, or when we simply wanted to chat. Nothing else has ever gone nearly as long as that time did, but if I ever felt lonely or in need of advice, I could sit down on the edge of my bed, pat the mattress beside me, and watch my room contort and stretch out as one of the friends walked up and sat down next to me. Once you've befriended them, they may do the same for you. The unreality friends, dangerous as their games can be, know you better than you know yourself. They know what you need. Listen to them. Rule 8. If you hear something outside of your space, get as far away from it as possible. This is one of the only things that will end a game prematurely. The friends have found their prey, and the hunt is underway. In the worst case scenario, the hunt may make its way to your reality ship, crashing upon its hull like a creature spoken of by sailors, dogged by creatures even more vicious than it. In fact, that is how many of the tales of great behemoths in the seas began, from the Leviathan to the Kraken to Charybdis and Scylla. Sailors spent their life upon the wooden planks of the deck, enough that many crews would in their entirety knew the ship better than they knew themselves. They'd set sail from the docks of reality and into the sea of the void. And just as many a tale of sea beasts tells of sailors dragged to the depths, you may find your voyage ended if you are caught in the crossfire. Rule 9. If an unreality friend asks you for a favor, accept it without question. The unreality friends do so much for you. They steer your reality ship out into the seventh dimensional seas of everything and nothing. They keep the ship safe from threats and from harm. They keep you well both physically and mentally. And for all that they do, they deserve a favor. Once you've befriended them, each unreality friend is entitled to a single favor. When they use that favor, you're to follow it to the letter lest you willingly doom yourself. You and your reality ship will be cast out into the ocean with no way to return. If you're lucky, a creature of the forever ocean will get to you. If you're not, you'll eventually drift past the line, through the border, into the purgatory of no-thing. You will spend the time there until time ceases, able to suffer hunger and pain and entropy, yet unable to die. I gouged out my left eye without a second thought when Ikayo redeemed his favor and asked me to. Rule 10. If you die in your space, you enter unreality. This will only apply if you die by natural causes within your space. When you die, your soul, for lack of a better term, splits off from your body and begins to float in the forever ocean. And eventually, ever so slowly yet surely, you are reborn. It may take a dozen decades or a dozen eons, but the particulates of reality and unreality floating in the forever ocean will begin to clump together. Agonizingly slow, but it will happen. You will become a soul drop. Over however long it takes, you will learn to control it, how to shift and warp the composition of your atoms, how to see and navigate 7 dimensions, how to swim, to speak, to be. Soon enough, you'll join them. Is how they all began. Just know this. Just as your soul is real, so is the afterlife. Whether you were meant to go to a heaven or a hell or just another life, it will not happen if you die here. You will be bound forevermore to swim and drift and play in the seas of unreality. For some, that seems ideal, to skip past the question of what comes after entirely. What if they were bound for damnation, for a rule they never knew to follow? Others may long to discover what was meant for them after their death, or are convinced in their own righteousness. I don't really think much about what the afterlife holds, be it gates upon stairs of cloud, opening to an endless chorus to whatever God exists, be it fire and brimstone and the whips that strike the soul, be it simply nothing for nothing's sake, or even in it a new life entirely. I don't tend to muse about it. My plan is, should I be so lucky, to become old and frail, I may still stay in the house I live in now, this same familiar room being where I spend my last hours. I may have found a new space, one which has overthrown the previous as my resting place, leaving this room as but a kind nostalgia for when I was thinking of this very moment. Whatever it may be, I will put my affairs into order, give my thanks and goodbyes, and ask to be alone in my last days, be it in a wheelchair, or supported by a cane or walker, or by the power of my own 2 legs. I will stand in front of the door. I will close my eyes and wait a few seconds. I will open the door, enter, and shut it behind me, and I will sit down upon my bed, pat the mattress next to me, and watch the reality ship set sail. The only way for a game with condition 11 to end is for me to either make it to the end or to die. I hope to die surrounded by my friends. I wish for Ikai, Oran, Ezrayana, Lilili, Nuya, all of them, to stand or fly or float or swim around my bed. I wish for my soul to drift off into the forever ocean as a soul drop. And I wish to eventually become one of the friends I died surrounded by. Whatever your personal belief or desire is, I'm simply telling you what will happen. I hope you get as you wish. Addendum, my apologies. I have been lying to you, not wholly, but lying nonetheless. I want to reward you for reading this far. Most tune out partway through and only remember a few rules. You see, the seas of unreality are dangerous. I have told you stories and personal anecdotes involving the unreality friends, but they are first and foremost predators. You're relatively safe once they befriend you, but they can be picky about their reality friends. They dislike those who don't pay attention. That's where this comes in. You'll know if a rule is real if it mentions Ikai. The others are all faulty. Now, you may wonder why I'm telling you this. It may surprise you to learn that the unreality friends actually asked me to tell this to those who paid enough attention. Hungry as they can get, there is other prey in the forever ocean, and they'll never pass up someone new to talk to. They just prefer smarter friends. It's like a vetting process. May your space stay safe. Your new reality friend.